Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. And we are looking at baby watching as a relational way to develop values and empathy. And I've said Michelle, hello, and group leaders, because I have lots of group leaders who I've recorded little snippets from to share with you, because I think it's far more powerful to hear from people who are using baby watching in their schools. And I think that means far more. So I wanted just to explore, first of all, values.
And making links as well with our school values and our value-based education that is such a big part of our school. You could definitely see them making those connections, which I think is fabulous. You know, it just is becoming more embedded at our school. It was another tool for getting that roots of empathy type approach, you know.
Yeah. Okay, so baby watching is deceptively simple. We say this all the time, and it's all about watching a parent and a baby develop their relationship together. And this is why I put it in orange. I'm absolutely stressing that. It's really, really vital. This is experienced, it's experiential learning, and it's all about the relationship. And the relationships are not just about the parent and the baby, and this is why it gets so exciting and becomes embedded in a school community. Just to listen from Griselda quickly.
Mother and baby are there, or father and baby, or grandparent, or whoever. They're learning from each other. The children are learning from them. They're learning from each other. The group leader, probably their teacher, maybe, is learning from the children, and the children learning from the group leader. And then along comes the mentor, another piece of shared learning. And that's why it's a shared learning, isn't it? Because it is so relational. I mean, the best possible kind of learning is relational.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it. So it affects everybody who takes part, and it's very, very simple. We're going to be probably focusing the most on empathy as one of the most core values that we feel that this really communicates. And it's so important for a child's well-being in an overall way, building that sense of security, that sense of attachment, and therefore stronger relationships. And when we're feeling secure, we're then prepared to take risks. And when I say risks, I mean learning risks, because we're not frightened of being wrong. We're feeling secure, we're feeling accepted, we're tolerant of one another, we are more prepared to learn. So that puts us into a really ripe position for learning and creates a lovely learning environment. When we're feeling accepted and we're feeling secure, we're going to have a more positive mental health. We're more able to communicate our own needs. And I think this is really important, to have the language of self-understanding and self-reflection so we can say what we need, because that's so important. Reduces bullying, helps us regulate because we have words for our emotions. And all of this will therefore lower our levels of stress because we become more resilient and more able to cope with the world. Hopefully I'll tell you a lovely little story about regulating our emotions, because now we have words. In fact, I'll tell it now. One of our group leaders was watching a session, and this little boy was saying how baby watching touched him. And he said, I used to growl. And then he unfurled, because he'd wrapped himself all round, his knees were up in his chest and he was all wrapped. He goes, I used to growl. And then he unwrapped and he said, but now I can use words. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So empathy, very, very important. We're going to come back to that later. So this is a game of two halves, really. I'm going to very, very briefly introduce the model, so you see how the model works and how easy it is to do in school, and also how we've developed the model over the last 6 months to cope with COVID. Bearing in mind we're such a relational program, how is that going to work virtually? And I'm going to just briefly explain that as well. So very, very quickly, the path to empathy. Dr. Karl-Heinz Frisch, who is a psychiatrist and psychotherapist, absolutely specializing in attachments, written many books, met with Dr. Henri Perrons, who developed aggression theory. We're not terribly comfortable with the word aggression. In this context, he's really thinking of it in terms of positively exploration, our desire to have that desire to reach out and explore, But also he was interested in aggression, people being cruel to one another. And they kind of got together and said, oh, wow, I'm simplifying this. Wow, everything we know about children and we know about emotional development, we must be able to come up with an idea that can help children be kinder and be more empathic, and thus the birth of baby watching. So, as I said, positive, healthy exploration, the negative, hostile aggression. And one of the real takeaways I want to give you today, even if you don't think baby watching is going to be right for your setting, I just really want to affirm you as educators involved with children that your sensitivity will absolutely have an impact on the children that you work with. Your level of listening and sensitivity will enhance secure attachment. And I want to just say that to you, thank you, because that makes a big difference to the children you're with. Okay, so naming is critical, because if we don't have things named, we can't understand what that feeling is. We know we're feeling something, and sometimes it's really uncomfortable. And so when you watch a parent, they're always naming, you know, oh, I wonder if you look a little bit sad at the moment. Oh, that's what that feeling is. So accurate naming is very important for us, that we know how we feel inside, so we can communicate that accurately to other people. And if we can communicate our own feelings accurately, we're more likely to have our needs met without getting frustrated or acting out. And so this idea of mentalizing and language development is really a big part of what happens in baby watching. And so we develop our own capacity for empathy through the empathy we experience from our primary attachment figure. A lot of baby watching is about modeling. So the group leader, who's often the teacher, modeling that lovely listening and that good empathy. And then the children also will model for each other. So that's really interesting. We can all improve our children's social and emotional health by promoting strong relationships. And it says, which was really interesting, the skills for social progress, that practical learning is a really good way to do this, which is what we are all about. So very simplistically, a parent and a baby arrive ideally in your class. I know we'll be talking about it virtually in a minute. And they spend 10 to 20 minutes, depending on the age of your children, for at least 2 terms. We say at least 2 terms because this is about relationship. It isn't something quick. This is something that develops over time. So at least 2 terms that they spend with the class, because you're watching how the parent changes their behavior to meet the baby's needs as the baby grows, and the baby's behavior changes, you know, to communicate with the parent. So it is at least 2 terms. And then the children are encouraged to explore this and really learn to observe. Anybody who's done any therapy, it really is infant observation for children. And it's an extremely valuable thing to be thinking about, how does that relationship work? That's it. And we ask lots of questions to help us explore and adventure and discover together. So the children tend to sit in a circle. We've established boundaries right from the start, no touching. This is not a model of development in terms of understanding how a baby develops. This is a model of experiencing a loving relationship and unpicking that and understanding how it works. So no touching. So mummy and baby, or daddy and baby, are absolutely in their bubble of safety within that. And they just act as normal. We want them to feel as relaxed as possible and just be in their moment, interacting with one another. And we say ideally from 6 weeks as early as possible. And when the baby is more interested in the children, which is usually around the walking stage, it stops being about the relationship, and then we stop the program and we'd either invite a new parent in, or it's come to a natural conclusion because it's in the summer term. And the children are invited to make these observations with the group leader, who's often a teacher, but can be the school therapist, can be the LSA, can be the SENCO, a family support worker, anybody who's trained to do it, and they help the children unpick the relationship. And we have 5 layers of questioning. And so every child can succeed, because it's very important that every child can feel they can succeed. Behavior, what are they doing? What's the baby or parent doing? Why are they doing that? So we begin to think about motivation. How do you think they're feeling? And what would you do if you were the baby or if you were the parent right now? And how would you feel if you were the baby and the parent? And these higher levels, questions 4 and 5, tend to happen. So the children in the first term, they really easily get, what is the baby doing? And then they go, what is the baby doing? Because, so they've now got motivation. Then they quickly link on, well, the baby's doing this because, and it feels like. And it's amazing watching the children develop, because we've now got this way of unpicking what's happening. They get so used to this sort of question technique that it's also could be really useful for helping children understand something that maybe has happened in the playground. So what did you see happening? Well, I saw this child take the ball. Why do you think they did that? Well, I think they were jealous. They wanted the ball to play with. And how do you think that made the person feel? Well, I think it made them feel very sad, actually. And what would you think you'd do if you were in that situation? Well, I think I'd want to ask them to give the ball back. It's just a really lovely way to help children unpick stuff that happens in the playground, because they get used to this type of questioning and therefore thinking through their own behaviour and others' behaviours in this way. Okay. So I'm just going to introduce you very briefly to a live session, and then I'm going to very quickly talk about how we've now transferred this virtually to help us at the moment. So this is a session that's happening in New Zealand a few years ago.
At the beginning of the year, it was just very few children speaking, but now everyone wants to have a turn to say what's happening. They're observing what's happening, but they're also taking it upon themselves to also talk about the feelings of both the mother and the feelings of the baby. And I think this is really exciting that they can actually put these into words. We're talking here about 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds, but they've come such a far way. And as I said, they're really willing to share.
Happy?
How do you know she's happy?
Because I can see her smiling.
You can see her smiling. How else do you think she might feel?
Happy that her mum's there.
Happy that her mum's here. What's she made over her head?
Holding it up.
I wonder why she has to hold it up.
So she doesn't hurt her head.
So she doesn't hurt her head.
She's trying to smile.
She is trying to smile. How do you think she's feeling if she's trying to smile? How do you know that she's happy?
Because I see her eyes wide open.
You see her eyes wide open, and look at her mouth too. And what's she doing with her hands?
Maybe she's practicing how hug her mum when she's grown up.
How to huggle her mum when she's a bit older. Oh, that's a lovely thing.
Up more higher.
She did put her head up higher.
Maybe her spine's grown.
Maybe her spine's stronger and developed and grown. You're right.
So that's a very brief session so you could see how it works live. We've developed a video resource to help us over COVID. It isn't going to be the same visceral experience because you haven't got the parent and the baby in the room, but there are other advantages about the video sessions, in that you can go back and play another bit. You can say which bit was your favorite bit and go back to that and explore why. You have a chance to stop and start. So we found these surprisingly successful and absolutely workable until we're in a position where we can have parents back in the classroom with us. So we've been working with a parent at the moment and we've also developed some resources afterwards that people can use post-session. But I'm just going to give you a little snippet about how that might work. Because we haven't got children responding to us, you've just got me asking the questions, but it gives you the idea. Look at baby's face. Look at mummy's face.
Yeah.
I wonder what she's trying to tell us.
Yeah. What else, honey?
I wonder how Mummy feels about it. I wonder what Baby thought of that. If we could use our words for her,
Yeah.
what do you think she might be saying? And how would she say it?
No.
What kind of voice is Mummy using? I wonder why. What does she think? What's Mummy doing now? I wonder how that feels for Mummy and for Baby. What do you think she thinks? What do you notice now? I wonder why Baby's pushing against her Mummy. I wonder what that feels like for Mummy. Why do you think she's putting her hands there? Look at how they both gaze at one another. I wonder what that means.
So it gives you an idea of how we're using videos. What we hope to eventually do is have a series of different families that people can pick from. So if they haven't got a volunteer that year, they could use a video resource. If they want to start in October half term, but the parent volunteer isn't ready until January, they might start with a video resource so that children are getting used to the idea of how baby watching works, and then the parent volunteer can come in live. But it's actually a really good substitute while we're in these COVID restrictive days, is to use our video resource. And as I said, we've developed some resources that can be used post-session, which we're happy to tell you about, if you contacted us. Okay, so what this idea of questioning and helping people sort of think and unpick the relationship is that it increases our sensitivity. We become more aware of both my own and others' thoughts, actions, motivations, and feelings. And all of that lovely self-reflective capacity, that mentalizing, I think that you think that I think, I feel that you've got the idea. So finding a parent and volunteer, that's how you'd get, hopefully it would start in your school. Some parents, we're still getting some live volunteers who are Zooming into schools. So they don't use our video resource, they actually have a parent that they're working with in the community who is Zooming into the classroom. We do still have some settings where volunteer parents are going into the class and are part of that class bubble, but obviously that is not happening as much at the moment. Most people are choosing to use our video resource. The timing, depending on the children and the parents' availability, there does need to be some flexibility there. And as we've already said, once a week for a minimum of 2 terms. Okay. So we've just begun explaining how we've changed our delivery with current COVID restrictions, and that we have developed this complete virtual package with post-session resources. And there are general observations of relational change. Play is more cooperative, there are less problems at lunchtime. The expressive language really improves, so children are more able to express their needs, and that also then feeds into their guided writing. What's really interesting about the language we've had, and the confidence and ability to ask, we've had quite a few children who've been elected mutes, or children with English as a second language, who have begun talking in baby watching sessions because they feel so safe. I had a child in one of my sessions, and the teacher said, "Did you notice?" And I went, "No, I didn't." They just seemed like every other child that was in there. And she goes, this is the first time she's spoken, and we're in year 1 and she's never spoken in school. And then it was the floodgates. She was making friends in the playground because she now felt confident to ask. She was asking the teacher to help her because she now could. It just opened the floodgates for her. And we have those stories quite a lot. Kind of behaviours towards each other, the self-awareness has increased, and so has the self-esteem. So I want to go back to really focusing on empathy, and it's enough of me speaking, although I'm going to double check that you haven't got any questions at the moment that you might like to ask before I move quickly on. All happy. Coulson, give me a no. Excellent. So I want to go back to developing empathy and using the practitioners' voices. So this is a school teacher, Becky, and she's going to be, and these series of videos actually emerged. They're from on our YouTube channel, where I was simply asking practitioners, group leaders, what do you love about baby watching? And that was the question. So none of this has been primed. And then out of that, I then picked out, what have people said about empathy? I'm really curious. And then these are just snippets from this video, but each person was asked, what do you love about baby watching? What do you see? And these snippets are taken from that video. So here we go. It helps build a sense of security and stronger relationships.
Lovely opportunity to bond with the children in a different space. In the classroom, we expect so much from the children on a day-to-day basis, particularly with the curriculum as it is now. And it's time and space with them in a gentler, calmer kind of way. It's time to bond and to see the children in a different light as well. You see reserved children come forward, you see some of the more confident children sit back. And it's really interesting to see where their different behaviours, where they go with it when they sit down and engage in a different environment. It's just a nurturing space.
And what's interesting about that is that baby watching is a great leveller. And again, the lovely school teacher, Becky, talking about encouraging tolerance.
The impact on the whole class, and it has helped evolve those relationships so that they create that safe space together. They have a greater recognition of one another's needs and responses and so on and so forth. And there's a trust that's built from doing baby watching.
Lovely little bit of Zoom freezing, shows how authentic it is. And what's lovely about that when you're working live is that you help the children co-create the safe space with you, so that they take a great responsibility for keeping the parent and the baby safe. That the baby becomes the class baby. The children, have a great nurturing need and really want to create a safe space. So they co-create that, which is exciting. Promoting good mental health.
Yes, and they just need little changes in how they interact with each other and how they'll offer help and how they'll ask for help, and they'll maybe do things that you didn't realise they didn't do before. Because sometimes those children can slip between the cracks. Sometimes those children who just get on and seem to be okay, and then something like baby watching, they can suddenly go, no, actually I can talk to you about this thing that's annoying me or bugging me. I can say, actually, I'm not okay at playtime, and I think I'd like you to help me with this, or I think I want some new friends, can you help? And it just opens that door for discussion about emotions.
And also that acceptance. There's so much permission in the group to be, just who you are, and therefore that acceptance to be able to express yourself and know that, the group leader, who's often the teacher, it builds a really good bond between the teacher and their children, because they can take those risks. I know this teacher will listen to me, she will accept me, and I'll be able to say, actually, I'm not happy with this, and that's really useful.
That idea came from a boy who initially did not want to come into the group. Year 6 lad, very aggressive, fighting at lunch times, not engaged in class, and with that intervention of baby watching, complete turnaround. And he was, empathising with the baby, empathising with mum, And the whole behaviour changed. It was just,
And this is a lovely story. So it's a year 6 child, which Alice has already told us about. And the group became, at first he didn't want to join the group. Babies, who wants to do that? But actually the group became incredibly important to him. The mother and baby became incredibly important to him. And as I said earlier, when the baby is beginning to walk, it stops being about the mother and the baby, and we talk about maybe this is time to end the sessions. And he didn't want it to end. And the group were thinking, how can we keep babies safe when they're beginning to explore? Let's go and get all the bean bags from the nursery and put them around the circle. So we sit behind the bean bags, and that way we can keep a really safe space for baby to explore and not get hurt, because he so wanted the group to keep going. So it was his idea. And what great empathy and thinking about how to keep the baby safe, and a complete transformation, because this child used to be quite aggressive in the classroom, aggressive in the playground. And now he was much more caring, much more regulated, much calmer.
They are learning an emotional literacy. So suddenly, instead of lashing out or bursting out with great big aggressive feelings, they're able to use their words to express themselves. I think for me, the fact that our children are gaining an emotional intelligence and an emotional literacy, so that the feelings inside them don't overwhelm them. Yes. They're able to understand their feelings and express them.
And I think that is just so critical. We can't regulate ourselves unless we have a self-awareness of what's going on for us, and that has to be named. We have to, realize what that is. Baby watching is a great way of naming these feelings, realizing that all the feelings are normal. We all get them. Hey, look, the baby's got them. The baby gets angry and frustrated and, and all those other feelings that we get. And now I can say them rather than, so it's so incredibly helpful. And when somebody says what our feelings are, we can then help that person. We don't need to act out. The feelings don't need to overwhelm us. So it's a wonderful thing in helping us regulate.
I can see the impact straight away with these children all throughout the school. So in their classroom, in the playground. So for instance, I've got children that were very reluctant to talk in the classroom, some that didn't really talk at all as far as giving their views or answers to anything. Yes. And they've come into our baby watching group, and some of them have wanted to sit very close to me, which was lovely. And then they may whisper an answer or a question in my ear. So that might go for 2 or 3 weeks. And then all of a sudden, they choose to lead the group into the room. And I'm kind of looking at them thinking, okay, and they're like, yeah. And I'm like, whoa. And they sat down and their hand is going up to either answer a question or to ask a question. Yes. It is unbelievable. And then I see that follow through in the classroom. Yes. And the teachers might say to me, oh my goodness, Jackie, this child is really starting to grow in confidence. They're putting their hands up. And I said, yeah.
And I think that's lovely, because we can't do that unless we're, we can't do that if we're feeling really stressed. And so it's sort of real evidence of that change into confidence, where we're feeling less stressed, more resilient, can cope with things that before we might not have done. So it's a lovely example. I wanted to discuss with you the safe space. And again, I'm just going to use the practitioner's voice just to describe this extraordinary change in the learning environment by having baby watching, and the space that it creates, not just in the session. This does then begin to fill out into the everyday. So it really does transform the learning environment.
The first thing I love about baby watching, that it gives myself and the children that chance to create this safe and secure place where they can sit together, they can share in talking and everything. Because throughout our day in school, it's so busy that this actually might only be the only opportunity that these children get to be together.
Okay. But it's a very safe experience all round, I think, with the sort of planning that we do before it starts. You know, I've both head teachers in the schools I worked in would also say they've absolutely loved it. So
Paul is a psychotherapist in another school. So I've showed you a mixture of people who are therapists and a mixture of educational staff.
I've also had children that have barely said a word throughout their first few terms of being in year 3. And, you know, Baby Watching gave them a safe space to communicate in, which is amazing.
And that feeling of safety does spill over into the rest of the day. And I also wanted to look at the developing relationships. So again, I've just pulled out little bits for you that feel really, and all of this is about really cultivating values of listening, nurture, respect, tolerance, you know, the acceptance, pride in each other. All of these values are now experienced, and it's just a very powerful way of learning is to experience it. So we're just going to look at developing relationship, which leads from safe spaces.
How something so simple and peaceful can change the way the children interact with each other, change the way they interact with their siblings, change the way they interact with me. They see me as someone they can talk to because they have that modelling of listening and taking turns and all that ethical vocabulary they build into themselves. And just, you get some real deep insights from children that are unexpected, children that maybe are quiet in the classroom suddenly come out with this really inspired thought about what the baby might be thinking or feeling, and that empathy that it inspires, and just so powerful and wonderful.
I'm loving that.
Yes, I suppose we're coming at it of working as a therapist in schools, but yes, the chance to build a relationship and I guess would be really thinking about attachment with your class through this experience. It would be. It's obviously a wonderful opportunity. Yeah.
Speaks for itself, really.
And there are so many relationships during a session. There's the relationship between the teacher and the class, the pupils, the relationship between the child, the baby, and mum or dad. Yes. Also, the relationships that the teacher's having with the parent and baby too. There's so many different dynamics going on. It's just a rewarding, magical time.
Teachers often say to me that it's like the calm bit of the week, you know, it's just so lovely and calm that they really enjoy delivering it. And so simple.
For this, I think this creates really special bonds between teacher and children, but also between the class network. The support I've seen them start to give one another, it's not just a relationship between me and them, but between their peers, is highly valuable. And I've seen that socially and academically because we have this half an hour a week. And I think it really is a massive payoff. I would hesitate to now have a class that didn't have that space for it.
Now, as we're all here wanting to hope that all this lovely stuff does impact the learning. So I really did want to just, and then we're going to hear from children in a minute, because I think they're wonderful to listen to as well. So I did want to just think about how people feel that this has really impacted. So there's sort of 10 to 20 minutes a week, and how the teachers have felt that's directly impacted the children's ability to learn and how they've learned.
That in the classroom within literacy, we kind of have a word a week, so they learn and build on their vocabulary. And so often they bring that into baby watching. So they might say that the baby is feeling frustrated, yes, devastated, allowing them to use that language and vocabulary in the right content where they might not have opportunity necessarily to be using it otherwise. So it gives them that more understanding and empathy towards each other. So that is amazing.
Well, definitely, especially with the whole curriculum broadening that we're doing now and avoiding narrowing of the curriculum. it's the speech and language development, it's taking turns, listening to other people, it's making sure that you're making eye contact, all those social cues that need to build up before you can have written language. You need to have the verbal and the vocabulary they pick up and the sentence structure. And I've had a lot of VAL children joining in the group, feeling more confident to speak English during the session because, if you could give the baby words, what would the baby say? It's not putting pressure on them. It's, if I was the baby, I might, and they can come up with all sorts of things, and there's no pressure to get it right because it's a life-based space. And then also with the PSHE, the emotional literacy, just it's so important. If anything, I'd rather miss something else out than miss out baby watching.
Seen that happen.
Yes.
Where children have moved from very, very reserved to much more confident socially, but also actually it's had an impact academically. They're learning to be a bit more resilient, a bit more willing to have a go, which has been amazing to see. So, yeah.
And for me, I think they're more willing to have a go because they feel safe. And if you feel safe, you're going to take those risks. And that's exciting, exploring, and that's where the heart of learning is.
I cannot stress enough how valuable baby watching is in any type of primary school setting, and probably beyond that. Actually, we've embraced it as part of our PSHE curriculum, but also through baby watching. We were provided with the resources during the training about where it fitted into other aspects of the curriculum. So you can explore so much through baby watching. And
so there we go. How can you become a group leader? Visit the website, contact us, Coulson, wave again. So contact us, we're very friendly. And we also provide mentoring, which we haven't really had a chance to discuss here. If you go on our YouTube channel, you can find out lots more about us. Go on the website, you can find out a lot more about us. I think we have some sort of taster sessions so people can get an idea of what we're all about. What we're doing at the moment is our training is virtual, and we're having 3 3-hour sessions. I think, Laima, you have just come from our training, haven't you? One of our trainings. So lovely to see you today. So with your fingers, what would you rate the training out of 10? 10 is fantastic. 0, I hated it. I'm watching you. So just with your hands, 10. Wonderful. Thank you from the horse's mouth. Thank you, Laima. It's lovely to see you today. But no, 3 hours. And then, so at the moment, that's virtual. That's why we're getting the excitement of training people in different countries, which is fantastic. Laima, I think you're Lithuania, aren't you? Yes. So, and Laima is I think the first person trained in Lithuania to do baby watching as well. You're an absolute trailblazer in Lithuania, which is very brave. And then, so we provide mentoring, we support the journey because it is something a little bit different. It's not out of a textbook. So we provide all of that support. So please contact us if you want to find out any more. It's very affordable. Our 3-hour sessions was £150. Very affordable. So yeah, okay. And I always think it's good to finish with the children's voices because they're out of the mouth of babes, literally. So here we have just two clips from children.
I think baby watching is good because it is helping us to learn how to communicate without speaking. I mean, it helps us to communicate with our eyes, not mouth.
Now, isn't that wisdom? I think that's such wisdom from a child. Communicate with our eyes and not our mouth. Although I'm doing very well at speaking a lot at the moment. Anyway, and the last one.
Baby watching gives me mixed emotions. It has also helped me to improve in my learning. Baby watching is something I love doing.
And I think that's really profound because it's not just about being happy. It's really important that these complex emotions, the more difficult, challenging emotions, actually are seen and heard and listened and understood and given permission for. So I love the fact that that child could reflect that. It's not just here I am to feel happy. Here I am to understand myself and all that complexity because that's what good mental health is. And so I love the fact that that's reflected here. So I think that brings us to the end of all my talking, and hopefully chance for any questions.
I want to ask, somewhere I have read that baby watching is adapted, it can be adapted for adoptive or foster children. Can you tell a bit more about that?
That's a good question, Lema. So a lot of baby watching looks at the attachments and the development of attachment in a very safe way, in a very non-confrontational way. It happens organically in a session. And so we have a social worker on the Isle of Man using baby watching with social workers and foster parents and adopting parents. So we're developing a training more specifically for social care. Our training is usually very educational for educationalists in primary or secondary. So we are developing training for people within social care settings. So look out for that. That will be hot off the press next year. When is our next training is a good question we've also received. And we've literally just finished a training. So Coulson and I haven't sat down with a diary to work out the next one. However, if we do get a lot of people really interested, we may well do one in January. Usually we do it around June time, and then we did one again early autumn term, so that people have time to get 2 term session in post-training. So if you're interested in training with us, please, leave us your contact details and we can tell you all about it. So the earliest, if we do another virtual one, will probably be January, if there's enough people. We can also come and do a training just for your setting. So just for your school, for example, because it's virtual, we don't have geography as a problem. So if you think there would be enough people interested in the school, we could do a training for the school via Zoom as well. So just get in contact with us and we can let you know when the next one is planned to be. I wanted just to leave you, I didn't know if we'd have lots of questions, so I left sort of 15 minutes for questions, which we're not using, which isn't a problem, but I really wanted to give you a gift. No one intervention is right for everybody. Baby watching won't be right for everybody, and you may not want to use it, which is absolutely fine. But what I want to leave you is this gift, which I started with at the beginning. Your sensitivity will enhance the relationships you have with your children and will improve their attachments. You are a great gift to your children. So I just really wanted to say that again to you, that you are a wonderful gift to the children that you are in contact with. Your increased sensitivity absolutely will enhance their secure attachment. It will help. And that's a great gift that you bring to your children. So it's just something I wanted to give to you at the end, that you are a wonderful gift. Okay. So thank you so much for coming on this quick blitzkrieg exploration of baby watching and how it works. And it'd be lovely to be in touch with any of you. If you're interested, please get in touch with us. So thank you very, very much.